Good afternoon, this is Nicholas from Gandora Gaming, and I bring you guys an announcement for a new Chaos archetype. Chaos Goddess was a synchro that was never really played, but now she has an entire archetype based around her with eight new cards that's coming out in the new Photon pack, or the Photon box that's next year. I'm really excited. Funny enough, I actually do own a Chaos Goddess. She's in my Metaphases deck. She's a really cool card. Basically, her effect, if I can just pull it up on my card real quick. Basically, she's nothing too special, but she's one light tuner and two non-light tuners, dark monsters. So it's really kind of hard to make her because you need one light and then two dark non-tuners. And then once per turn, you can send one light monster from your hand to grave, then target a level 5 or lower dark monster in your grave, special summon it, but it can't be used as synchro material. It's a very interesting card. It's not really practical, but now that she has an entire archetype synergizing around her, I think that she's going to be really, really cool. And I'm glad I already have my copy of her, because with all the new synchro support for her, I think this could be really, really cool splashable archetype for Chaos General. Thunder Dragons, Metaphases, any deck that revolves around light and darks, this archetype is going to help immensely. Now, it does have a caveat where it does restrict you and to only special summoning light or dark synchro monsters. But if the light and synchro monsters are strong enough, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Light and dark is probably the most generic of the two attributes, probably the most strongest of the two attributes. So I think that's still fine. I think there's plenty of light and dark synchros that you can still make that would make this pretty solid. I haven't really read any of the cards yet for the new archetype. I have pictures of them all. So I'll be reading these effects with you in order to ultimately figure out how this archetype works and ultimately see the potential this deck has. I'm really excited and I can't wait to show you guys more. Let's get started with the first card we see. Alright, so our first monster here looks like it's a Shell of Chaos. It's a level 4 Dark Machine monster, which is pretty interesting. And it has two effects. First effect is you can special summon this card by banishing a light monster in either your grave or in hand, which is easy, cool. It's a free special summon onto the field, so even if it's stopped right there, that was its only effect, it's a free level 4 onto the field. Yes, is it technically a neg 1 in hand? But it is another level 4 and it is chaos centric, so we'll see how this goes. And then when this card is special summon a banished chaos shell card from your banished zone to the field. We'll use the effect once a turn, and you can only special summon light or dark synchro monsters this turn. That is a very, very heavy restriction on this card, but it's still a great effect, and I can't wait to keep going. Alright, so our next card, we have Chaos Witch Kumaguri. She is a level 4 Dark Spellcaster, 1500, and she has a really, really cool effect. When she's on the field, you can normal summon her, by the way. You can tribute her, special summon 2 level 2 Spellcasters tokens onto the field. You can locked out of Light and Dark Synchros for the rest of the turn. Also, when she is banished, you also get to special summon 2 tokens. I believe each effect can only be used once per turn, which is really, really solid because that means she gets 4 tokens per turn, which is nuts. It's a very, really interesting card. It does, again, suck that it has the high restriction of locking you into light or dark synchros, but again, synchros that are light or dark are probably the best ones. Besides, like, Baron de Fleur, it's really just solid typing right there, attribute-wise. And these guys are really generic. So I really like this card, and let's go on to the next one. Alright, so we have our first Psychic monster of the bunch. This is Psychic Matter, I believe his name is. His Japanese name. They're going to change in TCG, but basically, he's a really interesting level 3 Psychic. So he's an emergency teleport target. Great. And he has 2 effects, where first effect is you can banish a light or dark in hand or on field or in grave in order to modulate his levels up and down. And then he also has the effect where you can return monsters from your banished zone to grave in order to modulate his levels again, which is very, very interesting. He helps you synchro climb even more. I'm happy that he's a psychic, so we can modulate him easily. But I am kind of sad to say that he doesn't really do anything on field besides modulate his level. He's a very interesting card. I just wish that besides modulating levels, he did more. But now we have Psychic Core. Alright, so here's another light monster. Here's our Core of Chaos. So this card works hand in hand with Shell of Chaos, which was the first card we talked about. Where basically when this card works is that you banish a dark monster in hand, because this is a light level 2 monster, special summon it onto the field, and then you can special summon a banish Chaos Shell from Banish Zone onto the field. You can only use each effect once per turn, and you can only you special summon light or dark synchro monsters for the rest of the turn. So it's really interesting how each one of them special summons the other from the Banish Zone, and it's weird how each are the diversity. So the other one banishes a light to special summon itself. This one banishes a dark to special summon itself. I am happy that it's from hand or a graveyard, but I wish it did more on the field itself besides special summon a card from Banish Zone. It's funny enough, these cards have really great synergy with Necroface, because you can get a whole bunch of things loaded in the Banish Zone with Necroface, and then using these cards in hand, you can special summon them onto the field because they'll be loaded in your graveyard as another resource. So it's a very interesting card. It doesn't have great stats, but that's what you get for being a core. And I really like this card. I really like how this archetype's going. But I do feel like it's missing some really good payoff. So let's see where this keeps going from here, okay? Alright, so our next card is Chaos Mirage Dragon. This is a retrain of Mirage Dragon in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a very old worm dragon monster. And this guy's kind of nuts. He has two really good effects. Basically, when this card is normal summon, you can special summon one of your banished light or dark monsters in your Banish Zone onto the field. Effects are negated. You are locked into light or dark synchros. But this is the really good part about his effect. You can then synchro, when this card is used as sacred material, you banish cards your opponent controls, I believe monsters, and then up to the number of materials as that synchro summon. So it's just free banishing, no targeting. It's just really, really good. A very powerful monster. The fact that it just says, hey, if I'm using synchro material, I'm a free synchro 8 basically. So if you target like a level 4 that's already banished, you just get to reborn it and then synchro again, which is just really, really good. It's a 1-card synchro. It's a tuner. It's light. It's very Metaphys vibe. It looks like a Metaphys card. It's a worm like Metaphys. It's a level 4 tuner like the main Metaphys dude. It's a very interesting card, and I can't wait to go over the synchros and the one trap we got. Alright, so our next card here, it looks like he's our Guardian Chimera for this archetype. He's not really a Guardian Chimera, but he looks like a Chimera, so that's why I mention him like that. He's a Synchro 6. He's 2,000 attack, so the defense does not matter. And basically, he has 3 effects, and all 3 effects are decent. First effect is, if a card was banished this turn, this card gains 1,000 attack. The second effect is that if this card is, when this card is summoned or is on the field, once a turn, you can add one of your banished light or darks back to hand. And its third effect is that if this card was in the graveyard or banished this turn, you can special summon it back onto the field. Does not the turn it was sent there, which is really, really interesting. It's a really cool card, but I think it's just another extender, honestly. Yes, because it's 3,000 attack, whatever. But we have a better synchro, which I want to discuss. I think this card's really, really cool and helps us climb into that synchro. And it is helping us get resources back. But overall, it doesn't really cause any disruptions to our opponent besides, using the worm guy as the tuner and using a level 2. Thus, we banish 2 cards on their field, which is pretty good. But other than that, it's average at best. And let's just get into the next synchro. Alright, so this next guy, I feel like, is the best card we've gotten so far when it comes to the new support for the Chaos archetype. This guy's amazing. He's 2,500 attack, and basically he has 3 effects. First effect is, if a card is banished this turn, he gains 2,000 attack, thus he comes to 4,500, which is crazy. Then his second effect is, he can attack all monsters on the field once each, so he's an OTK enabler. And then his third effect is that basically when he kills... Oh, wait, I forgot to mention his second effect, part 2, because there's 2 effects. Not only does he attack multiple times, but he banishes those cards when he attacks. So they don't go to grave where they usually do. They go to the banish zone. So that's pretty crazy as well. And then the third and final effect is when this card leaves the field by your opponent's card effect, like if it's destroyed or whatever, and then special summons a chaos monster from the extra deck, which is kind of crazy. This guy is what the definition of a boss monster is. He is a little harder to summon out, but I believe because of his support, he's a lot easier now. Because the issue with the old Chaos Goddess girl was that her summoning condition was weird, where you needed like a light tuner and 2 non-light tuners. There's like 3 materials to make them, and she's kind of like that too. But because of all this new support that we just got, I feel like it's a lot easier to do that now. This deck kind of reminds me of the Chaos version of Demise and Ruin, because they kind of banished the board instead of destroying the board, and this guy is just a big version of him that attacks multiple times, which is really interesting. I don't think this deck is at all meta, but it's definitely splashable, and I can't wait to see what archetypes can use them, because they're all kind of generic, honestly. Even if you don't like the main deck monsters, because they restrict you into light and dark monsters, these guys are generic. They're weird generic, because you gotta make them with like a light plus 2 darks, or a dark and plus 2 lights, which is kind of interesting, but still, he's kind of a house, and the fact that he attacks every special summon monster, and the fact that he becomes 4,500 attack if a card was banished that turn, that's kind of nuts. And if your opponent makes a huge board and you chaos, you summon this guy, you're just going to beat the shit out of all of them. Not to mention, when you synchro summon, you're most likely using the Chimera dude, the worm. Thus, you're banishing cards too on their field, which is just kind of sick. This guy seems like a very good game ender. I just hope that the trap card is really good as well. So let's get to the trap. Alright, so this next trap card is the only trap card we got in the archetype so far. We don't have any spells. This is the only trap card. It's not a bad effect at all. Basically, it says return 1 light and dark banish card you control in your graveyard to then synchro summon a monster onto your opponent's field. Onto your field. Which is really, really cool. So the idea of this, I think, is that if you let's say you have the banish worm dude and you have another card in grave, you can activate this trap card, which is trap trickable because it is a normal trap. Synchro on your opponent's turn into the big guy. And then the big guy, because he was synchro summoned using those cards as material, will then banish cards on field during your opponent's turn. Which is really interesting. I don't know if that's how that works, because it is shuffling them back into deck. So I don't know if they resolve because they're technically in deck now. But it is very interesting. And you can tell me in the comments if that's how that works or not. But the fact that you can synchro summon on your opponent's turn is interesting. I always like decks like that. Goaty, Metaphases. Well, Metaphases don't really synchro summon on your opponent's turn. That's more like a Curse Draw thing. But they do play on your opponent's turn. Frames, decks like that. So this is very interesting. I can't wait to get new spell cards. I can't wait to get more synchros. I hope we can get some more spells, traps, monsters. I just can't wait for it all. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy. Don't do anything stupid. And you all take care.